Rejected Moon. Episode 11, The Scattered. Written by Mia. The Nightreach council met again the night we came back from Harrowmere, and this time they did not bother to pretend they weren't afraid of me. They'd had the scouts report. They'd had the survivors' whispers. 20 warriors who'd ridden out and come back having watched a girl unmake 40 corpses with light pouring from her hands, and warriors talk, and by nightfall the whole free city knew that the keystone of their hope had stood in a dead square and done something that looked, from the outside, exactly like what the thing in the deep does. Free, unmake, release, destroy. From the walls of Nightreach, you cannot tell the difference between a moonborn giving the dead back to the moon and a severed taking them from it. Light is light, and a frightened city does not parse theology. "We are not safe," said the Cold One, the council speaker for the war faction, a scarred old wolf named Harrow who had buried 2 sons in the council's wars. "Every time she burns, the thing wakes further. She told us so herself. So the question this council must answer is simple, and I'll be the one with a spine to say it plainly, since the king won't. How is keeping her here different from keeping a lit torch in a powder store and calling it our brightest hope?" I watched Ronan's hand close slowly on the arm of his chair. I put mine over it before he could rise, because I'd learned in 10 days of being the belle that a king defending me made me look like a thing that needed defending, and a thing that needs defending is one short step from a thing that gets handed over. "Because a torch in a powder store does nothing but burn," I said, standing, taking the floor that no one had given me. "And I'm the only thing in the city that can walk into the dark and do more than die in it. You're right, Harrow."
"I'm Dane Hedis."
I woke it. "I won't insult your dead by pretending otherwise. But you've spent 2 centuries doing it your way, keeping the bell quiet, keeping the world small, and the result is a powder store with the dark already inside the walls and getting in further every night I don't act. So you can melt me down for the quiet you'll get for about a season. Or you can let me go find the one thing that might actually end this and stand the danger of me in the meantime, the way brave people stand the only weapon they've got even when it frightens them." I let that sit. "I'm leaving at dawn either way. The only thing this council decides tonight is whether I leave as your hope or your fugitive. Choose fast."
"I'm tired."
Harrow stood up across the chamber, and for a moment I thought he'd call for my head then and there. He had the votes in waiting and the grief to spend them. But he only looked at me a long time, an old soldier reading an enemy he wasn't sure was one. And what he said was almost gentle. "You talk like your kind always talked in the old songs."
"Brave. Certain."
"Sure, the dark can be stared down by anyone with enough spine." He shook his scarred head. "I buried 2 boys who talk like that, girl. The dark doesn't stare down. It waits, and it takes what you love to make you flinch, and then it takes the rest of you while you're flinching. I hope you're right. I've hoped people were right before, at councils exactly like this one, and I've carried the coffins after." He sat. 3 votes. You have your dawn. Spend it better than my sons spent theirs. And I understood that Harrow was not my enemy, that he was something harder to answer, a brave, frightened old man who'd watched exactly this kind of hope fail before and loved his city too much to trust it. They let me go as their hope.
"Barely."
By 3 votes, and Harrow not among them, and I understood as I left the chamber that I was now living on a margin that thin, and that the next village the severed unmade, the next time I had to burn, those 3 votes would move, and Nightreach would stop being a refuge and start being one more place I'd have to leave on my own 2 feet before they came for me with iron. So at dawn we rode, west this time, back toward the country I'd sworn I'd only ever leave on my own terms, and here I was leaving Nightreach on someone else's, which is the joke the world keeps telling me. West toward Greywater's hills, because I needed the one thing Nightreach didn't have. I needed Mara. If she lived, Cale said, low, on the second day, when I finally said it aloud. He'd gone quiet, and strange the closer we came to the hills that had been his, the alpha with no pack, riding back toward the wreckage of the thing he'd held the line to save. When the council came, she was Wren. She was old, and she didn't run from anything in her life, and an old woman who doesn't run when the Iron Grey comes. She lived. I said it flat because I needed it true. She carried the last of the Moonborn 3 valleys through the snow when she was younger and braver men were dying. She's not going to be put down by a council patrol. She lived, and she's in these hills with whatever's left of your pack, and she knows the thing about my mother and my blood and the dark that nobody at Nightreach does, because she's the last of the order that kept it. I have to believe that. So I do. And Ronan, riding my other side, who could have said 100 kingly cautious things about hope and the cost of it, said only, "Then we'll find her," and made it sound like a fact, and I loved him for it, and 3 feet away, I felt Cale hear the love in it and ride on saying nothing, and the splinter turned, the way it always turned, and I let it. We found the scattered Greywater pack on the 4th day, in a hidden fold of the high country, and they were a ruin. 40-odd survivors of 300. The strong ones who'd run when Cale bought them time at the boundary path, and the children they'd carried, and a few old ones who'd refused to be left, living rough in caves above the snowline, half-starved, jumping at shadows, a pack with no alpha and no home, and nothing left but the habit of surviving. And when they saw us come down into their hidden fold, when they saw Cale, alive, their alpha, returned, there was a sound I will never forget, a broken collective cry, half grief and half a hope they'd thought they'd buried, and they came up the rocks toward him weeping, and Cale Greywater got down off his horse and went to his knees in the snow and let his shattered people fall on him, and held them, all of them, the strong and the small and the old, and said, I'm sorry, I came back, I'm sorry," into their hair. And then they saw me behind him. The weeping stopped. I watched it stop, watched 40 faces turn from their returned alpha to the thing that had come back with him, the No House Omega, the bell, the reason the Iron Grey had come to Greywater in the first place and burned their lives to the snowline. Hesper was there, who'd made the moon sign against me. Tessa was there, thinner, her river pearls long gone. And in their faces was the old looking through curdled into something worse, because now they saw me all too clearly, and what they saw was the cause of everything they'd lost. "You," Hesper said.
Just that.
And 40 broken people looked at me with the specific hatred of those who need their catastrophe to have a face that isn't the skies, and I stood in the snow and took it because some of it was even fair. Enough. Cale was on his feet, and his voice was the Alpha's again, cracked but absolute. She didn't bring the council. My father's silence did, and the council's cruelty did, and the thing in the deep did. She is the only soul in any world trying to end it, and she has come back into the country that hates her to do it, and you will not, his voice broke and held. You will not do to her what I did. I rejected her under the open moon to save my title, and it cost us everything, and I have had a long time to learn the shape of that mistake. Don't make it again on my account. We are done throwing away the only thing the dark is afraid of. It did not make them love me. Nothing was going to make Greywater love me. But it made them go quiet and step back and let me pass, and that, I was learning, is most of what mercy looks like in the real world. Not love, just being let through. Kale stayed with his people while I went to find Mara, knelt with them in the snow and heard the names of the dead, one after another, the roll of everyone the boundary path hadn't bought time enough to save, and took each name like a blow he'd earned. He was their alpha again, and being their alpha now meant being the man who carried their grief, and I watched him do it and understood the shape of what I'd loved in him before he broke me, and what might, in some other life under a kinder moon, have been worth keeping. Tessa caught my arm as I passed. Tessa, who'd hoped the goddess could find me in all that gray, a lifetime ago, and I braced for the knife of her. But she only looked at me with her thin, frightened face and said, "Is it true that you're trying to stop it? My mother's out there somewhere in the dark. We got separated, and if she couldn't finish." And I understood that even hatred runs out in people who've lost enough, and what's left underneath is just the same terror I carried, wearing a different face. "I'm trying," I told her. "I swear it on the moon that chose me. I'm trying." And she let go of my arm, and didn't bless me and didn't curse me, which from Tessa was the closest thing to grace I was ever going to get. Mara was in the deepest cave, by the only fire, and she was alive, and when she saw me she did not get up because she could not anymore. Something in the running and the cold had taken her legs, but her eyes were the same, sharp and wet and unsurprised. "There you are," she said, as if I'd been late to the spring. "I told them you'd come back. They didn't believe me. They never do." And then, softer, looking at all of me, the way she'd looked at me the night of the choosing. "Oh, child, you've gone and become it, haven't you? The thing I spent 19 years praying you'd never have to be. I can see it on you. You burn now." I burn now. I knelt by her fire. Mara, the thing in the deep, the severed, it called me sister. It's a moonborn. One of us, cut loose and left to rot for 300 years. I have to find a way to end it, and everyone who knew how is dead except maybe you. My mother, did she know? Is there anything at all? Mara was quiet a long time, the firelight working on the ruin of her face. "Your mother knew one thing," she said at last. "The thing that got our whole order hunted, the thing the council killed to keep buried, the thing I carried 3 valleys through the snow inside a baby because it could not be allowed to die with her." She reached into her rags and drew out, for the second time in my life, something wrapped in oiled cloth, not the bitten moon pendant this time, but a small book, swollen with damp and age, covered in a cipher I somehow already half knew, because it was written in the same hand as the note beside a frightened boy's name in a visitor's. No. Wrong story. Written in my mother's hand.
"Her account," Mara said.
Everything the Moonborn remembered about the dark, before the council burned the rest. I cannot read it. The cipher dies with the blood. It only opens for the line.
"But you can, child.
You're the last of us. It's why she made you at the end, when she knew they were coming, not to anchor in a cord, not to be a weapon, not even to live." Her dry hand closed over mine on the little book. "She made you to read this, and to do the things she ran out of time to do. So take it. Read your mother's last words, and learn whether the dark can be killed, or whether all my running ever bought the world was one more frightened girl, walking toward it in the snow, 300 years too late." "Why didn't you tell me?" I said. My voice had gone thin. "That night at the croft, when you gave me her pendant, you knew there was a book. You knew there was all of it. Why let me walk east not knowing?" Mara's ruined face creased. "Because you weren't ready, child. A frightened Omega who'd just been broken under the moon, who still flinched at her own shadow. If I'd put your mother's whole war in her hands that night, it would have crushed her, and you'd have run from it the way you ran from everything, and the book would have died in a snowbank with you in it. Her grip tightened, surprising in its strength. It opens for the line, yes, but it only helps the one who's grown enough to carry it. You couldn't have read this 10 days ago and survived what's in it. I'm not certain you can now, but you've stopped flinching. I watched you take Greywater's hatred standing up, out there, and not break. Your mother couldn't have done that. She was braver than me and softer than you, and the soft is what killed her. She let go. Read it knowing it will hurt. That's the only way any of it was ever going to come to you. Knowing and hurt, and too late to look away. And I knelt in a cave full of people who hated me, beside a dying woman who'd saved my life before I had a name, and opened my dead mother's book, and felt the cipher catch in my blood like a key in a lock. And the first page, the first words my mother ever wrote to the daughter she died to hide, came clear under my hands, and they were not instructions, and they were not a weapon, and they froze the breath in my chest. My darling, it began, if you are reading this, I am gone, and the thing you are hunting is your aunt. To be continued. That was episode 11 of Rejected Moon. If the moon has you now, the next episode is waiting. Subscribe so you don't lose the trail. The complete book is available on Amazon, and early episodes and bonus chapters are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I've Mia.
Thank you for listening.